What's up, everyone? Zero here. I got a big surprise for you guys. I know it's been a while since I put out a podcast episode, but I sat down with the GOAT himself, ConnerConverse, and we had a really good conversation just about build creation. So if you are an aspiring build creator, he is 100% the guy you want to listen to. He makes some of the most busted builds in the game, both POE 1 and POE 2. I think you guys will really like this one. If you guys enjoy these podcasts, please consider subscribing to the channel. And with that being said, let's get into the episode. Obviously, the vets are already going to know who you are. There's a lot of new players that I have coming into watch.
I'm still pretty new to the scene. Like, when I think of the vets, I think of, like, you know, Zizaran and people. But, like, I was Twitch partnered last year.
Right.
So,
but
like,
you've been playing for a while, correct?
I've been playing for a while, correct.
Right. So do you want to introduce yourself and just kind of talk about how you got into playing Path of Exile to begin with?
Sure. OneManaLeft on Twitch. That's been my gaming tag for years, going all the way back to, like, you know, initially RuneScape and then World of Warcraft. And, like, my Twitch account is 12 or 13 or 14 years old now with that name. But on YouTube, I'm ConnerConverse because that's just my real name. And so those are the two aliases I go by. But, yeah, I've been playing PoE since 2011 or 12. I'm one of the people that joined basically when Kripparrian came over from Diablo 3. I watched, you know, I was a crypt viewer all the way through the, you know, world first hardcore Inferno Diablo. I saw Crypt come over. I started playing myself, and I got into it. And I'm someone who doesn't, like, shop around and play a different game every 2 weeks. I just, like, commit really hard to, like, 1 or 2 games at a time. And that's always been the case. I was a real hardcore RuneScape player. I was a pretty hardcore World of Warcraft player for a few years. And then I became a pretty hardcore Path of Exile player. And I did that for years, all the way through the initial leagues. I don't know if it was Onslaught was my first league, but it was back when they had 2 different leagues for hardcore and softcore. I did that for years. I did post a couple videos. I think the first video I posted for Path of Exile was the world first Uber Elder AFK. I played Righteous Fire, and I posted that video, and it did pretty well. I got like 30K views. But, I mean, that's all I did is I would just, like, post 1 video per league. And there's a handful of people that, like post like that. Like, just play the game casually, post 1 video per league. And I did that for a while. Eventually, I posted the Mjolnir video, which was kind of the same thing. Like, I just play 1 character really hard per league. I really liked the character. It really felt like kind of a masterpiece of, like, everything I've, you know, become good at over the years. I did a lot of stacker characters. It was a mana stacker. It had a really intricate build style of Indigon. And Mana Bond specifically was even weirder because you had to do this mana loop of dropping low on mana and then rebounding back in this cycle. And I think the way I wrapped the build together to be as automated as possible for this otherwise complicated setup, it was a real, like, magnum opus. It was a masterpiece build. I posted that. It got a lot of popularity. It got like 100K views on YouTube, and then it got the build of the week, and it shot up to another 50,000 on top of that.
Nice.
And a lot of people are like, hey, man, you should stream. So I'm like, all right, I'll try streaming. I started streaming, and I got like 20 viewers concurrently after that, which, to be fair, on Twitch is the absolute hardest part by far. 99% of people that ever started a Twitch stream won't ever get to 20 concurrent viewers. You are automatically in the top 1%. So it sounds silly to say I did that video and then I started streaming to 20 people, but that is the single biggest slingshot you can have. And it just, you know, 20 viewer, 30 viewer, 45, 75. And I was pulling a consistent, like, 75 to 100, like, not partnered through a little bit of, like, most of 2023. 2024, it got a little bigger. We had, like, Mana Forged Arrow build, and then I got a big slingshot forward with Settlers of the Calgar, because that was the Molten Strike, the Zenith League.
Yep.
I largely do mana stacking videos and builds, but I don't hold, like, die hard to one type. I'm not like the Gazi playing minion type play. Like I normally do mana builds, but like I'm open-minded to do anything in that league. Zenith was the build. It felt good. So I shot up again there. I started bringing like, you know, more and more players, several hundred. And since then I've kind of just like snowballed it. I did then, I'm trying to get the timeline right here. We had the POE 2 launch in 1 year ago. That was, I wouldn't say good, but it was, you know, a different base of players, but well, there was a lot of hype around the game, a lot new, like, not just content creators, but viewers in general. But it, like I said, for the reasons I've described previously, it hasn't really stuck in the sense that my audience is people that like played those weird, wacky, like Mana Forged Arrow type builds I made in POE 1. And so it hasn't really stuck yet because the game doesn't suit my content style yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a rough patch there because from Settlers of the Calgar, we had 11 months of zero POE 1 content.
Yep.
And we did finally reach, with like Freesia League, a revisit to POE 1. Freesia was amazing. Around that time, they made the hard commitment that they are going to do a 2-month alternating cycle, 4 months of POE 1 per league, 4-month cycle for POE 2, alternating every 2 months. And at that point, I made a leap of faith. I decided to try going full time because in the past I could keep up with that, just like with time off and stuff on league cycles. But it looked like POE 2 was in a very developmental spot, and they were finally committing to adding content for POE 1 again with 326 with Mercenaries coming up. At that time it was announced. So I decided to make the leap of faith and go for full time because there was no other way to keep up with the 2-month cycle. And so we've been on the first 2 cycles of that now with the 4-month alternating. And the goal's just been growth, and I've managed that so far a little bit, but that's kind of where we're at now, and that's kind of where we've slid into for the 1-year anniversary of early access for POE 2.
Yep. If people watching this don't know, your build or your channel is like my go-to spot for like meta builds. I've played your builds every single league basically since I've started. So like post affliction.
Psychopath.
Yeah, exactly. So like especially like the Molten Strike, the Zenith build, that was one of the most fun builds that I've ever played in the game. So I wanted to ask you, what was your progression like as far as like build creation? Did you, because obviously nobody hops into this game, there's so many layers of complexity and stuff, like nobody hops in just knowing everything. What steps did you take to become like a good build creator? Like were you just studying like unique items? Were you like looking up different interactions? Like what did that evolution look like for you?
I think this goes the same way with like acquiring knowledge in a game like Path of Exile. And it's the answer is kind of the opposite of what people expect. You don't gain knowledge in this game evenly. That's not how it works at all. You gain knowledge at one thing, and you get really good at one thing, and then the next league comes along, and you do something else. So nobody gains knowledge in Path of Exile broadly. What they do is they come in as a new player, and maybe you joined in Affliction League, and all you did was Blight. Like just to give like obscure examples, and that's how it goes. And so you play 500 hours if you're a diehard player in that 4-month period, and all you did was Blight. And you get really good at that one thing. You know nothing about Delve. You know nothing about Heist. You know nothing about Betrayal. And this is the same how I did it. You just get really good at one thing per league, and then you switch. You play a different archetype, you play a different build, a different skill, and all you do is you just learn that one thing really in depth. So instead, you don't raise the floor, you just build a pillar and say, hey, I know Delve, and I know nothing else. I know Siege Ballista Totems, and I know nothing else.
Right.
And as time goes on, you just build another pillar and another pillar and another pillar. And eventually it looks like a floor because you just have all these pillars stacked in a line. And that's really the best way to learn for a game like this. You can't ever bring the floor up. It's too vast. You just make a pillar and then move sideways. And that's exactly how it's been for me. As far as like building knowledge and like learning things in this game, is it's just you get really, really down the rabbit hole one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. And that's been my entire 13 years of playing this game. And now it looks like I have a floor.
Right. So what would you say would be the best pillar for someone to start at? Because a lot of people watching these podcasts come into my chat and they'll say, you know, I'm trying to make builds. I want to learn how to make my own builds. What would you say would be the best pillar to start at?
Well, that's the neat thing in this game is at least like using Path of Exile as the baseline. There's such a vast ocean of things that the correct answer is just like whatever you like doing.
Okay.
So if you come into the game and you're like, man, I like Cyclone, that's what you do. You start with that thing and you go for what you enjoy. And there is something for you automatically, whether it's minion builds, whether it's melee builds, whether it's spells, bows, whatever. You just pick what attracts you and try to become the master of your own domain.
Okay.
And just keep building outward from there. So you start with your pillar as the thing that just catches your eye, and then just build out sideways from there.
Okay. That's a good answer. I wanted to ask you, because I've watched you for multiple leagues now, watch the patch notes. Like, so when I watch the patch notes drop, I usually watch you because you seem to have like an intuition with this stuff. And you're miles ahead of me as far as build creation. But I wanted to ask you, what catches your eye about a certain build? Like, because I know when they did the I want to say it was what was Zenith? What league was that? Was that 3.25 or 2.6?
325.
325. Yep. Okay, so when you were watching you were going over the patch notes. So after the reveal, you said this is going to be the most powerful skill in the game. Why?
Yep.
Why? How did you know that? What are you looking at? Are you looking at damage effectiveness? Are you looking at just damage uptime? Like, what are you looking at to determine that?
So every new cycle of content, they oftentimes have like a revolving door of a new league comes out and they want to make buffs to a certain archetype. And they do this intentionally because they don't ever target like pure balance. They target a cycle. So they look at what's lacking and they say, we're going to buff melee for 325. The way I like to go about this is, going in usually what's going to get buffed. And so you try to look at it from what's already good. For 327, it wasn't as broad as 325 melee, but it was like wands. There was a lot of, not much. There was a little bit of emphasis on wands. Honestly, less than they usually do in a patch. But they added kinetic rain. There was a little rework to Fusilade, I think. Mm-hmm. They buffed clustering. And so even though it was a really light emphasis for 327, I went for clustering because when I look at it, that looks like what's already good. And this happens every patch. There's 325 melee. So for 324, the league before, I looked at it and I'm like, what's already good? And that's usually the best way to go about it, is to look at what is coming up that's going to get a buff and try to look at what's already good. And this for any patch, even like for POE 2, it's good to have like a baseline knowledge of like roughly where everything is at. Like, here's where minions are at, here's where bows are at, here's where spells are at. And just like going into the 0.4 patch notes, for example, one thing I was looking at was like Blood Mage. Like Blood Mage, life stacking, Spark, Wrathpith. I'm like, that's really good. There's the Lineage gem that gets you all that gain his extra fizz damage. Mm-hmm. And you go into a patch and you're like, that was one of the first things I control left is what happens to this. And it got hit hard.
Right.
So there's going to be things where you go into a patch where you're like, there's 5 to 10 things that have caught your eye. Don't hyper focus on any one thing. Just have kind of a bench of like these 5 or 10 things look good. I have a good idea where they're at. I have a good idea what they would need to be amazing. And usually that's what happens is a couple of them nosedive and get nerfed. And sometimes for reasons beyond our comprehension, some of those things catch an updraft, and that's the plan going into the following build. Then you see something that was on that bench of 5 to 10 things. Some of them don't get touched, some of them get nerfed, and oftentimes illogically one of them gets buffed, and there it is, and then you commit.
Are you looking at when you're picking a skill? Are you looking at what draws you to a specific skill? Is it damage effectiveness? Are you just looking at like scaling potential? What about a skill? Obviously, you probably I'm sure you pick things that you enjoy playing, like the type of play style. But like what specific, like numerically about the skill pulls you towards something?
That's exactly it. It's 2 factors. So it's damage effectiveness and then playability. Okay. So it's almost like a good example. This is like Stormbind. If you just graft every skill in the game for like Path of Exile 1 and tried to look at the raw damage effectiveness, Stormbind is always a skill that has the most obscene damage effectiveness. But you'll notice the way the build plays is you make a bunch of squares on the ground, and then you have to power up all the squares. Mm-hmm. And by God, that better be the hardest hit in Path of Exile when it goes off, because you just spent like 4 seconds building it up. And so that's a good example where the damage effectiveness is great, but the playability is terrible. I suspect going into point 4, we might see something similar with watering plants. When those plants finally harvest, they better do more damage than God, because there's no other way to make that build work. But that's usually how it works. You have a damage effectiveness, but then playability. And oftentimes these 2 things are at odds. So you're looking for a combination of the 2 things, because like Tornado Shot, right now in the game in 325, 6, 7, has really bad effectiveness compared to skills like Lightning Strike. Mm-hmm. But it has a really, really, really good playability. If they ever make it a little bit better, everyone will want to play Tornado Shot, because Tornado Shot is like a 10 in terms of this build feels really good when it's actually working. And then like Stormbind is the epitome of this feels really bad, but it does an almighty amount of damage.
Right.
And so you're looking for like the center point between those. Well, not really the center point. You're looking for the outlier that gets to cheat and be good at both. Okay. So every league you're just looking for what's the combination. So yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, the next thing I wanted to ask you was about damage scaling, because right now I have your kinetic blasts of clustering from 3.27. I have the POB up on the screen on the overlay. You can't see it, but what's a good way to ask this? How do you go? Because I mean, I know a lot of people, dude, they struggle, especially me. Like I struggle getting 10 million DPS out of a build. What goes into scaling damage to such a massive level? Because I remember your Incinerate Venting build, and I was watching you just one-shot Uber Exarch, and I was like, damn, dude, like I don't, and I know a lot of people struggle with this. They come into my chat and ask questions about this. What goes into scaling that much damage into a build? Like what are your, I guess, like what are your milestones that you're trying to hit when you're creating something like that? I guess that would be a good way to ask it. I might not be using the right phrase or not, but
so the best way, this is gonna like brick people who aren't like, people visualize things differently. Some people are visual, some people are numerical.
Right.
But I'll try to give an example of this, and it might be really hard. This might be a bad thing for people to visualize, but if I just said, what's the bigger number? Is it 1.5 to the 3rd power or 1.3 to the 5th power? Which is bigger? It's going to take a lot to think about, but the answer is it's 1.3 to the 5th power.
Right, yeah.
Because it's more things multiplying together. And this is very true for any RPG, any game. It's true in World of Warcraft. It's true in Diablo. the more things that you can multiply together, even at a smaller number, the bigger the number you get. And in like the Incinerate case, well, let's take a step back. So you have multipliers in Path of Exile, and the way to get a skill to do damage is percent damage. This could be things like Indigon. This could be just like generic percent damage on the talent tree.
Mm-hmm.
Flat damage. This can be things like Archmage, Replica Alberons. This could be gem level. That's kind of the old-fashioned way to do it. It's just like, oh, let's slap on gem level to Penance Brand. But every skill has to draw damage from these things. Flat damage, percent damage. But then there's extra. There's more damage. Some skills are really gifted with more damage, like Mana Forged Arrows. Some skills you have to find it and you have to make it up. And it could be, like in the case of Incinerate, the more damage comes from auras.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got flat damage from Energy Blade. We got percent damage from just generic in-stacking with, like, you know, Simplex and stuff. But the effectiveness is insane on Incinerate eventing. It's like 1,700% per second. But the more damage in that case, you had to cheat the system and get it from auras, because like Wrath aura is lightning damage, which doesn't apply to Incinerate naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to flip it to lightning damage. Then you get Zealotry, you get aura effect, you get cast speed, which is a more multiplier. And all of these things are more. So you get auras, effectiveness, percent, flat, cast speed, Righteous Fire in the case of Freesia. All these things are more. So you're basically just looking for as much more as possible, as many layers as possible, and you're trying to build all of those things to the highest source you can, because at the end of the day, then they all get multiplied. So Mjolnir, Mana Forge, they're trying to get as much percent as possible from that one cheesy post-it note on your forehead. But that isn't required. You know, Crown of Eyes, Iron Will, on like, you know, strength stackers, whether it be like Zenith or whether it be even like, you know, people play clustering with the same setup. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to look for as many multipliers as possible. Because like you were saying, most skills in the game, if you just were a new player, even like a 3,000 hour player, where you're just like, okay, I'm gonna play Frostblades of Catabasis. I'm gonna put on a good weapon. I'm gonna get flat damage from having like essence lightning damage on this weapon. And you start looking at it, you start making it in POB, and you're like, well, what's my percent damage? Well, I'm just gonna spec into, I'm gonna get some large cluster jewels, I'm gonna spec into some nodes on the tree, I'm gonna get like 600% increased damage, and you start adding all these things up together, and you get like a, you know, decent character in POB, and you look, and it's 12 mil DPS. And that's not bad. That's 99% of builds in the game.
Right.
So, and you can still make that a great build if it plays well. And that's most things from most content is it's 12 mil DPS, it's got good screen clear, so depending on what you want to do, that's amazing. You could map all day, you could clear tier 17 Delirium maps with Frostblades of Catabasis, and if that's what you want to do, that's amazing. But it's only when you start to narrow the field for things that require crazy damage, where it could be like Delve or Valdo's maps or a certain strategy in tier 17s, it's where you have to raise the bar to something that requires that. So for most build making, that can be like almost bait. It's just like look at the POB number. But then the thing that kind of wraps it all together is what you're actually targeting to farm at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Got it.
It is fun to try to make the number as big as possible.
Right. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you're actually targeting.
Right.
Because league after league, one of the most popular builds in the game is Righteous Fire.
Yeah.
And Righteous Fire has one of the least... It's one of the most ZDPS builds in the game.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But it is... I said Tornado Shot was the edge of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I forgot Righteous Fire exists. The 0-button build. That's the ultimate quality of life, is this park my character in the map and let things die around me.
Right.
So...
Right.
You do have to consider what you want to farm and what the quality of life is.
Yeah, you're not going to be bossing with an RF build. I mean, especially after they nerf Fire Trap too. It doesn't really work the same as it used to. I wanted to ask you, is you do you make builds that go into those Voldo maps, dude, that are just absolutely insane. So what goes into, like, let's do the inverse of this, right? So what goes into like the defensive side for you? Like, because you make builds that are essentially just unkillable with normal content, especially. So what like, how do you map that out? Like, what like checkpoints are you trying to hit? Are there any like tips for people that want to put together or strive to put together builds like that?
Well, on this one, let's go the opposite way. Let's start with what are you trying to farm, and then from there, what do you build? How do you build a character? If you looked at a character that was played by Ben, for example, it would look really different than usually one of my characters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an interesting like divergence here, because if you looked at a Ben POB and just like looked at the max hit, it's almost certainly going to be lower than like one of my POBs. Even if you try to like ignore like HCSSF, even if you try to ignore that and just tried to almost look at it from like a hardcore perspective, and you get to the point where there's like one of two ways to build characters, and you can make it so that the build has no weaknesses and it covers everything. You know, it's got 75 chaos res, it's got suppression, it's got, you know, it's life based, it's like a 6k life toxic rain character, and it's only got 110k max LE hit, but that build has no weaknesses. And that might have been like the Ben Gauntlet character from 2021. Like, if you watch that character on like Toxic Rain or whatever play the game, that character takes no damage. It has no weaknesses. There's nothing wrong with it. It works all the time, every time. But then, like, if you brought that character into, like, and just told it, well, go tank the Uber Eater Nova.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just never do that.
Right.
That's not what you're trying to do with that character. You're trying to win a gauntlet. You're trying to farm Simulacrum, whatever. Like, if you're trying to do something stupid, if you're trying to like tank the Eater Nova, now you have a weird character that has a chorus gaining elixir and it's got all these weaknesses, and it's almost like defense on Tuesdays.
Right.
And it's like you have to start making concessions, and you have to say, well, now I have this gimmick to the character, and that's horrible for hardcore, but I can tank the Eater Nova. Like, you see, you have to, you know, there's a divergence there of like a hardcore, well-rounded character is gonna like be good all the time, and maybe a gimmicky character, or even in this case, a Valdo's character, it has to be able to be tanky for these scenarios. It has to get 600k max LE hit, but it doesn't have to be tanky all the time. It's just got to be like, you know, built for this one thing. So that's a good like spectrum of, usually you have to come to a choice between like not even ignoring like budget or like self-found versus trade. Usually it comes down to like how broad of a, you know, how well-rounded is this versus how specialized is this? Right.
Well, let's just take your builds, for example, like just personally for you, like, because obviously, I mean, you take your builds like that incinerative venting character. I mean, that thing was doing Valdo maps where, you know, your character's done if you die. So what do you do to like what? I'm trying to think of like the way to translate this to people that are trying to like learn how to do this, because a lot of people want to learn how to do what you do, you know, or at least come like some degree of close to you. So like what advice would you give to newer build creators when they're trying to build something super tanky? Because a lot of people are under the impression that you have to sacrifice one for the other, and you're you're like one for the other as far as like defense and offense, but your builds are obviously the exception to that rule. So what is it that you're doing that's different than you see other people attempting to do?
Well, I think the first thing is maybe to split this into two answers is if you're like a newer person that wants to get into like making builds, sometimes people might have the wrong idea where they come in and think they have to like start from scratch and like do everything themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where like that's not really how it works. Like, how many car manufacturers are there in the world?
Tons.
Did they invent the car?
Nope.
Did Henry Ford invent the car in 1903 when he made the Model T? No, he made the mass production line. Some guy named Mercedes-Benz made one 2 years earlier in Germany.
Right.
And then someone might say, well, there was a steam engine before that. And it's like, no one made it first. They all just like took something else and improved upon it.
Right.
So people might like when you're like coming in and you're like you might be like a new like build maker. You might look at people who go on like POE Ninja with disgust and be like, oh, you're just copying someone else. And it's like, that's not really how it works. It's more so like you can draw inspiration from everywhere.
Right.
Like, dude, Jung Rohn he is subscribed to every single build maker on this planet that has more than 5 subscribers. Like there are people that like, it's like 4 people in Jung Rohn are the people who are subscribed to them. And it's just like gathering information from everywhere sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then the other side of that is like maybe it helps to start with a goal in mind and build toward that goal. So it's like you have to like start with the finish line and then build toward that. So yeah, it comes down to saying, well, I want to do Valdos maps with this characters. Okay, well, which Valdos maps do you want to do? There's 2 pills here. Do you want to do void maps? Okay, if you want to do void maps, well, maybe DPS is out the window now. And maybe now you're going to play a Trickster with Ephemeral Edge and Suppression and a lot of Energy Shield. Or maybe you want to buy the Valdos maps that have Union of Souls and Delirium and 90% less damage, and now you want to have the most damage possible for this character, and now you're going to play an Armor Stacker on Champion that has 8 billion DPS. So it's like, it almost always comes back to you have to pick what your target is. You're not just starting like ambiguously. You're in at least this is how the game has become. If you want to do anything right, you almost have to like build it for that job. You know, it's not a Swiss Army knife; it's a specialized tool.
Right. So I wanted to ask you. You use Indigon a lot in your POE 1 builds. Can you explain that mechanic to people, like how that works? Like why is that such a good item to use for the builds that you create in POE 1?
You say POE 1, but well, we might see it POE 2 here. We'll see.
Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, so back to one of the previous things on like how do you make damage?
Right.
And it's like it's getting as many things multiplied together as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's effectiveness, flat damage, percent damage, more damage. Well, Indigon is the king of the world at percent damage, but it usually adds clunkiness to the build. But it's just so unchallenged in terms of percent damage. Like even like the like Crown of Eyes and Iron Will, like even that you're talking like 1300%. You know, it's like Indigon just kind of stands above everything else for percent damage.
Okay. But
it just comes down to, can you deal with the clunkiness? And well, dealing with the clunkiness is a lot of math. This is one of the only games out there where you can gain an advantage over other players by doing math. and most people don't want to do that. So it immediately gets rid of a lot of people from equipping the item. But for those who maybe, you know, this is almost even like a POE 1 versus POE 2 mindset, where I've seen a lot of people that like are maybe newer to the genre entirely and have maybe like scoffed at PoE 1 and have been drawn to PoE 2 is like this is one of the common things I hear repeated is I don't want to have to open up an Excel spreadsheet to play my game. And it's like that is Indigon at its core. It's like, but so now what I've decided to do is to maybe try to make an Indigon build in PoE 2 so we can sour both those things. I like that about the game though. I almost like, if you wanted to like play a game where all of your skill as a player came down to what your reaction time, what your APM was, then you know what? Go play League of Legends.
Right.
But this is a game where I don't mind opening up a spreadsheet to optimize my build. So that's why we have Path of Building, and that's one of the nice identities of this game at its core is you can play the simplest thing possible, or you can break out the complexity and break out the spreadsheets and gain advantages that way. And I like that about this game. I like you have those options, and you can do the weird stuff if you want. You can do you can salutations exile. You can do that if you want. You have those options. I like that about this game.
Yeah. So what's the deal behind Indigon? Can you walk us through it? How does it work? How are you getting all this increase?
I think it's simpler than most people initially look at it. The easiest way to think of it is it's a direction. You have mana spent, and just try to think of it as like a flat line. And one of two things is going to happen. Either the number's going to get bigger, or the number's going to get smaller. And there's a middle line there that is what you're going to operate at. And if you start to get rid of the numbers and just, like I said, some people are visual learners and some people maybe are more numerical. But if you want to make it a visual thing, that's the easiest way to think of Indigon is it's just this line going across a chart. And when everything's at equilibrium, you're going to spend 4,000 mana every second, and you're going to get to 16,000 mana spent every 4 seconds. And if you just keep doing that, nothing will change. You will just keep spending 4,000 mana per second. But the second you start spending 5,000 mana per second, now you're going to ramp up, and it's going to go to infinity, because then you spend 6,000 mana the next second, then 7,000 mana, then 8,000, 10,000, 13,000, 17,000, and now you're gone. Or you're going to do the opposite, and you're going to spend 3,500 mana, 3,100, 2,600, 2,300, and now it's going to start to slump negative. And with Arcane Cloak, you can reset that. So that's without Arcane Cloak, there would be no Indigon, basically. I think there was even the first patch where Uber Elder was released and they added that item to the game. I don't even think Arcane Cloak existed that first patch. So the only way people used the item was to like spam Blade Vortex and try to spam their mana spend up with that. But I guess that's kind of the easiest way to simplify it is the number getting bigger or is the number getting smaller? If it's getting smaller, you have to reset it with Arcane Cloak. And if it's getting bigger, you are eventually going to get to the spot where you have to sit there and do nothing for 4 seconds because you've gone to infinity. You can no longer sustain the spend, and yeah. A
lot of people have come into a lot of people have tried to play your Mjolnir build, the ball lightning one, and they don't have Arcane Cloak. They don't understand the interaction between that and Indigon. So I was like, they're like, oh, I'm not doing any damage.
Yep, and like that's another misconception too. Sometimes is like they think one of the biggest misconceptions about Indigon is that you can win through recovery. I had people maybe play the clustering setup this time, and they were thinking like, well, do I use the mastery that like recovers 10% of mana? And they maybe have the misconception that like, oh, I have a 59% Indigon, but I can counter that through having that mastery to recover mana. It's like, you can't actually ever win if you either like if you are going positive, it doesn't matter what your recovery is, you will lose eventually. So that's the biggest misconception of Indigon is you can counteract spend as the multiplier with recovery, and the thing is you're going to lose eventually. It's like the old story of the emperor who said he'd give a grain of rice and he'd double it for 30 days. And then all the storehouses of China went empty or whatever. Like that's the kind of same thing. It's like the kid will win eventually. He'll get his 500 million grains of rice, then billion, then 2 billion, you know?
So on the as far as the last league, have you found any like well, obviously you're using the Foulborn Choir of the Storm on the clustering build, but have you found any other like super busted interactions with these Foulborn items?
I think a lot of them have been found for the most part. Maybe there's some sleeper ones in there, but yeah, I think by far the one that I'm almost kicking myself that I didn't see this, and Palsteron was the one that found that one, but yeah, or at least popularized it. But yeah, the Hoa, that was another one where it ended up making for a really crazy build, and the Instack Hoa was one of the ones that really came out of this patch. I think those are probably the two biggest winners, was the Choir of the Storm or the Instack Accuracy Stack Hoa.
Yeah, that was.
There were maybe some lesser wins for sure. Some of the ones came out in the later patch. There was maybe the Dune, and there was even the double Foulborn one for that, where people were getting Energy Shield and I forget, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It makes for good patches and good items. We're maybe even gonna get it coming into 0.4 with some of the Temple produced items. They're kind of in that sense bringing Foulborn to POE 2. It looks like.
Yeah, they're just calling them Vol items, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. No, it makes for This is maybe a whole nother discussion, but it maybe makes for more creativity when they add something to the game, especially if they think that it's going to be gone next patch. It almost lets them kind of like cut loose and just say, if they come up with something broken, so be it.
That's the same thing. The Mercenaries were the prime example of that, I thought.
Yep. Yeah. It almost lets them do more fun things when it's not going to be core.
Yep.
Looks like a mini F there, but we're here.
Yeah, I made a Crackling Lance build back when we had the Mercenaries, and just because you could put the Doriani's prototype, it was doing like 80 million DPS. It was just absolutely absurd. I mean, the build would have normally done like, I don't know, 10 million maybe. But yeah, it was always like an 8-time multiplier on all your damage when you can, affect the affect the resistances like that. But I want
in 327. That's like another thing is Bloodline Ascendancies. For the most part, I think they were kind of underwhelming to a lot of people. Some builds ended up, using one or the other. But when they first announced them, I remember myself included seeing the revealed ones and thinking these are a little underwhelming.
Right.
And I think it comes back to that was something that is intended to be a core system to the game. It wasn't part of 327 or Breach at all. It was supposed to be, it's going to be here to stay. It's going to be permanent, a permanent addition to the game. And because of that, I think they approach that a little more scared. They try to kind of make it almost underwhelming intentionally because they have to live with those consequences.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the same thing. It's like if I personally approach it, even like, Freesia, for example, it's like, whatever, go crazy. I kind of prefer that more. If they know it's going to be a temporary thing, they really turn the dial up on the fun part.
Yeah.
And that's a consistent thing with them.
Yeah, I made an Absolution build with the Chaos one, the Chaos Bloodline. I think that's what it's called, the one where you get from the Trial Master, and that build's a lot of fun. It does a decent amount of damage. It's not, but you have permanent uptime on the Sentinel, the one that's ascended. And it's the one that does like the carpet bombing attack. You have like 100% uptime on it. It's a lot of fun. I've been working on it for like the last week, but it's pretty decent. So some of these are like really cool.
I've only ever treated Absolution as what if Stormcall didn't have to use less duration. I've never explored the minion part of it.
It's pretty fun, dude. It's a decent build. It's just one of those things. It's just like mid tier. I mean, it's nothing crazy. I like creating things on my own though. I don't like to Like I'll follow your builds or like something that's like guaranteed, but a lot of the builds out there that people put out, I mean, like you spend all this time, and PoE is one of those games where you spend a lot of time and currency investing into a build. And then if it doesn't work, if it's just bait, because there's really no way to tell if nobody's like commenting on it and somebody puts it out, it looks cool. But so I like to do things myself. I'm trying to veer away from just following other people's builds because I feel like that's probably the best way to learn. And then, you know, I don't want to get caught in a situation where I'm dumping, you know, hundreds of divines into a build. It takes hours and hours to set up, and then it just doesn't work. So, you know.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of the best way to do it is, you know, sometimes people think like, well, I feel like I'm playing like a worse thing or whatever. But like, really, honestly, the best way, if you want to get into like build making straight up, sometimes the best way to do it is to even maybe start with a more meta build, accumulate currency, whether it be a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And then you get to that part where it's like, well, now I have these divine orbs. Time to do some fun, you know,
right.
and you know, sometimes it fails, sometimes it succeeds, but it's fun to get to that point where it's like, yeah, at this point, I don't care if it's the best thing, but I'm just going to have some fun. I've accumulated this money and I am going to spend it. It doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if it's bad. I am going to make lightning tendrils the greatest skill in the game. Here we go.
And the cool thing is, like, it's yours. You know what I mean? You created it. And I think that's like the magic in Path of Exile 1 is it's so multifaceted just as far as like, you know, the layers of complexity that you can dive into. And you can make like, I was just thinking about it. I think that the build options, like the amount of builds that can be created is like, I don't even know if it can be calculated. It's so large. I don't think that all the build combinations have been tried.
No, I mean, that's one of the things where like Path of Exile it's not even close when it comes to diversity. I was looking at 327 in hindsight. And I was looking at like the PoE Ninja snapshots. I think at one point the top played build, maybe this was like 2 weeks into the league, but like it was like the top played build was 9%. Yep. And the 20th build was still 2%. 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. Yep. And you get to this point where it's like, maybe I was looking back at 326, but yeah, the like Bama, I think, for example, was one of those things where it's like 4%. And it's like, you still think of that, and it's like, that's like borderline meta. It's like, you'll get things to drop, and you'll be like, wow, this is a Bama item, you know, 5 divines, whatever. And it's like 4% play rate, and that's the crazy thing. You still consider that like borderline meta, and it's like, dang, 4% play rate, and it's like, you just keep going down the line, and you know, it's great, especially from like the economy point, like where it's like, there's all these different things where they still find value, and yeah.
I wanted to ask you, speaking of the economy, I know that your builds have a tendency to kind of shake things up in the economy. What do you do to? Because I know I know you always say you're a slow campaigner, but what do you do to farm? Because I know you have a way of like, now I'm at 3 mirrors, now I'm at 4 mirrors. What are you doing? Like, what's your process when it comes to like farming currency? What's your go-to?
I think I approach this in 2 different phases. The early phase, I kind of take the kind of like no sweat approach, but I'm a believer that, especially in a game like Path of Exile, it's better to do something that you enjoy that is suboptimal than to do something that's optimal you don't enjoy.
Right. And
the reason for this is Path of Exile has a self-correcting for that sense. If everyone goes into a patch and says, man, it's Blight time, and they all do Blight, and you don't enjoy Blight, it's better to do something you enjoy that is 80% efficient, because the way these things tend to go is if everyone does the thing that is the top optimal, efficient thing, and they, whether they enjoy it or not, Garrett prices will self-correct for that. Mm-hmm. The items to do the builds that farm that thing will self-correct for that. And that is the single greatest thing about Path of Exile is all of these things get self-corrected. So even if you're doing the thing that no one else is doing, and it's supposedly half the money as all these other things, well, if that seems to be the way it is and no one else is doing it, it will self-correct. Because if no one's doing it, then you'll be the only one doing it, and you can charge what you want.
Right.
So that is the single greatest thing about Path of Exile in that sense, is, that self-correcting factor. The other part to that answer is if you do it for long enough and you get to the point where you're the only one who can do that thing, and this is getting more to the point of Valdo's maps.
Right.
If you can get to that point where you're the only one who can, well, then all the money in the world is yours.
Yep.
So yeah, I think of it as a two-part problem. Of the first part of the league, I just try to do, the thing I enjoy doing. Because, even if you get to the point where it's if you enjoy it more, you'll get to the point where you can do it more. So from just the hours standpoint, it's man, I can only handle Blight for 4 hours. Man, I can delve for 10 hours, It's if it gets to that point, then it becomes the part where the fun thing is the right answer. But yeah, once you get to the part where you're at the... This is kind of a Valdo's map thing where it's if it's something where it has a barrier to entry where there's a straight up strength requirement to do it, then those are the ones where that is my target farm for that very reason. I love to get to a point where it's I'm the only one who can do this map,
Right. That's how I am with Heist. I love doing Heist. Regardless, I mean, I know that prices dropped a little bit this league because they lowered the barrier to entry because they didn't make you level up the rogues anymore. But I mean, I made 400 divines in 3 days just doing that.
It's funny too for Heist. I was watching Ben farm Sanctum for raw divines, and I'm I feel like you can get more raw div from Heist.
Yep.
And he's just he paused what he was doing. He's Heist. He got 5 raw div in 12 minutes.
Yep. It's wild, dude. Because you can just buy the single revealed blueprints off of trade for in the very beginning of the league, they sell for a couple of chaos. And you don't know what you're going to find in that curio room. It could be a simplex. It could be a helical. It could be a focused amulet. It could just be a stack of divines. There's just so many different options. I always look at it what are the available drops, right? And obviously the simplex is going to be the lowest percentage of the drop, but you have so many more chances to get other things that are worth a lot. And so, you just never know. It's like pulling the casino lever or the lever on the slot machine every time you go in. So I really like that because there's just so little cost going into the blueprints. So, I mean, that's usually how I like to do it. Heist is my go-to every league, man. I always make, sometimes you only make a few div an hour, and then other times you make hundreds of divine an hour. So it's pretty fun.
That's the nice thing about POE is there's some complexity to all these farms. So I always tell people, I feel like it's best to just do what you enjoy the most, because by doing it more, the other part of that is you'll accumulate the knowledge to do it. Because, some people like to fan out, but at least in the league start environment, maybe you can, do other things and explore later. But in those first few days, if you're doing the thing that you've done 5 times before on league start, whether it be Heist, or Sanctum or whatever, it's you'll be a little better than the people who are maybe thinking, I have to do Heist because that's the meta thing this league. And it's that person coming in is going to be missing that knowledge if they're just kind of going with the flow and doing what they were told was best. where if you have that knowledge going in of doing the same thing that you've done before, you're going to have that leg up. Now, hey, if you're someone who has all those thousands of hours and you've done every single thing 20 times to the point where you have all that knowledge already, well, then, if something's 10% better, you can do that, sure. But
yeah.
You do get that leg up having that existing knowledge for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. You can just take demolition contracts and just get, like, right when you get into Act 6 and you start finding your first smuggler caches, you can just run those, and that's like instant chaos orbs, like to get like quick upgrades. A lot of people don't know that. But that's usually what I'll do. As soon as I just skip the campaign over to heist real quick, and then I'll just get some like quick upgrades. Just like little tricks like that that exist in the game.
Heisters are gonna need to start downplaying some stuff soon. Like it might. You gotta start. I shouldn't say this out loud, but anytime I get a few divines from Delve, I need to say, hey, this is it's not that good, guys. It's not that good.
So I want to switch gears over to we just had the big reveal for 0.4 in Path of Exile 2. So switching over to that, like obviously, I mean, once again, you have a knowledge of the game. I'm not trying to glaze you or anything, but you have the knowledge of the game where it's just like it just automatically translates over to Path of Exile 2, and you make these super busted builds over there too. So what changes for you going from POE 1 to POE 2, just as far as build creation? Is there anything that you do differently? Is it, are you looking at different things? Just kind of like what's the difference for you?
So it's a little unfortunate it's this way, but I do feel like with POE, if I'm looking for a build that I want to play, I usually don't put much consideration into movement. I focus more on power or playstyle or screen coverage. And unfortunately, I feel like there's the elephant in the room with POE 2 where you have to put an emphasis on movement.
Right.
So I hope we get to a point a year from now where this isn't the number one thing for designing a POE 2 build, but yeah, that's the elephant in the room. You gotta address movement. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now is, one of the things I'm considering is if we don't have all of the druid talisman skills yet, but I'm going to kind of keep my eye out if they keep doing teasers this coming week where they show a couple more of the skills.
Yeah.
If there's a wolf skill that's got some baked in movement, I'm looking at maybe an accuracy stack titan to try to get some movement out of that. But yeah, that's probably the biggest difference between POE 1 build design and POE 2 build design is the absolute emphasis on move speed above all else for POE 2.
Right. I wonder if they're going to walk that back.
The other part of that is maybe a lack of really, really difficult endgame content.
Yeah.
Because if you can make a build that can clear the whole screen really fast in POE 1, well, the first thing you're going to get asked is, what's your DPS? If you're 2 mil DPS, full screen AoE really fast, you have a very limited amount of content you can do.
Yep.
If you had that same build in POE 2, it'd be the greatest build in the game, no questions asked, no other things needed. Where it's like, oh, you're 2 mil DPS, you can't kill new boss. It's like those extra layers above just mapping that are missing from the game, they don't have those extra barriers of defining a good build. So with that just completely out, it's like, well, go fast.
Right. I wonder if they're gonna walk that back as far as because when we look at the old teasers from Path of Exile 2, back when Chris was still there, he was doing the narrating on the teasers. They had Quicksilver flasks. It seemed like a lot fast. It didn't seem too fast, but it seemed a lot faster. And I know there's a lot of contention, right? I don't know why they did this, because they take a game like Path of Exile 1, right, where you have a lot of people that just want to blast through the game, and that's the enjoyment that they get out of it. It's the main reason why they play. And then they wanted to make a game where it's like slower, more methodical, but that doesn't really work when you're being swarmed by mobs. And when you're porting over PoE 1 mechanics like Breach, like Abyss, when you're just getting swarmed, you have to, by definition, blow up the whole screen and kind of be fast. So it's like there's a little bit of like design philosophy contention there, I guess. I'm wondering what their end game plan is going to be for that.
Maybe I'm coping thinking this way, but I think the way they're going about this is the mindset that every percent of speed they give us, they can never take back.
Right.
Because when you're developing something new, if you like, okay, this is the example I've used before. Many years ago, I remember I was playing Diablo 3 and they gave us a double legendary weekend. When the weekend ended, players were very upset and weren't playing the game anymore because now they viewed it as half legendaries.
Right.
So they made it permanent, and forever that was the new legendary drop rate.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's like if they just said, like, okay, I know rightfully so, everyone's kind of memeing on Roa being like borderline mandatory. But at the same time, like if they took Roa away, it's like there would be some level of backlash there of like, oh, well, now we've lost that speed. It's kind of this, like, so I think they're being a little too cautious on this. I'm of the belief that early access means you can try these things out. But I think they're just being ultra conservative with like, we have to hold the speed back at all costs. Because if we give them an inch, they'll want to take a mile, and then they'll never allow us to draw it back. So, I mean, they have to go a little bit further. When it's to the point where it's like poisoning the water on build design, I think you've gone way too far.
Does the having the skills locked behind certain weapon types? What's your view on that? Are you like pro that? Are you anti that? Do you think that restricts build design? Because it's like that in some skills in PoE 1, but not like they don't have categories like they do in Path of Exile 2, where it's like, okay, these weapon types can only use this type of skill. It doesn't really work like that. It's more broad. What's your thoughts on that?
It's certainly more restrictive in PoE 2. There's not many skills or hardly any in PoE 1 that are single weapon type only. Mm-hmm. Usually it's like, maces, axes, or like swords, claws, daggers, whatever. Yeah. It's usually at least like 3. I'm going to remain open-minded to this just because there are so few weapon types in the game still. Like, we don't even have swords. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of wait to form an opinion on that till we have more types, because maybe when they add more types, they'll expand upon that a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like if they open that up a little bit, because there's certain ones that you can't use that don't really make any sense. I can't think of it right now, but there's a skill where it's like you could use it with a quarterstaff, but it's a mace skill, and so it's only maces, but it would make total sense, like thematically, to use it with a quarterstaff. But there's certain skills like that where it's like, it's just kind of weird. Like they have it just isolated to this one. So maybe they'll open it up more in the future. But what were your thoughts overall on the patch?
Overall, I mean, the biggest disappointment was like lack of endgame. Mm-hmm. The temple mechanic, we'll see. Looks interesting. I'm not super hyped for Druid because I think most players look at a new patch that has a new class and like the average player base just wants to say, I want to do the campaign as a druid and that's it. But I don't get as hyped for like that one thing. I try to look more at the game like broadly. I would rather have a patch with no new class that just said we're gonna focus on endgame.
Right.
Then now maybe those aren't the same teams working on it. That's a false equivalency, but like still, like that's what I get excited for. I mean, graphically, everything's looking great. I think that's going to bring a lot of people in just from like the druid standpoint. It looks interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'll be open-minded, but I really want to just keep pressure on them to rework endgame.
Yeah.
I do recognize too that like I know that I can't just sit here and say, hey, there's a couple of players in my community that won Endgame. It's going to be a thing where like the bell curve needs to shift more in that direction. So like the more and more people that maybe they only played the campaign in 1.0 or 0.1, but you know what, maybe they're going to play 0.4 and they'll make it all the way to level 96, and Fubgun will have taught them how to make 200 divines, and it's like the more people get shifted to that part of the bell curve, like the more we're going to get to a point where there will be people sitting there tapping their foot like, okay, where's the more content? So right. I'm just kind of playing the waiting game still, that like we just need more of those players in this community, because it's a pretty significant percentage of the POE community. It's just not a very significant percentage of the POE2 community yet.
Right. What I was looking at the because totems is one of my favorite archetypes to play in Path of Exile 1, and I thought it was a very, very weird decision for them to make spell totems like a generator spender. It's I don't understand why they're making decisions like that with the skills. I don't know why they're going with that generator spender system.
I think they will eventually lose this battle, but they're still fighting it, of wanting combo play on trash. I think eventually they'll have to cave that combo play is dedicated for bosses only. Right. But for now, they're choosing to fight in the trenches on combo play versus trash. They'll lose eventually. It's just a matter of how long. Yeah. I was always like, I don't understand, because you could like you don't need to force people to do combos. You could just make the combos so unbelievably busted that it's just inevitable that people will play it. Because like when you're having to combo white mobs, it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't feel, there's something weird. It doesn't feel good, especially. And it comes down to harder content too. Yeah. Like you can't have like Alkengo T15s be the content and then force combo play on white monsters. Right. If there was like some sort of Valdo's map where if you beat it, you get a headhunter, and those white monsters have 20 million HP, and I have to combo play them, I'd do that. Right. Yeah, because there would be something worth it at the end. So I have I got one of my subscribers hit me up. He's got one of the people subscribed to my YouTube channel. He had a question for you. He wanted to know, just in general, as far as like POE 1, POE 2 doesn't really matter. He tends to count how many offensive and defensive nodes that he picks on the tree. He wants to know how you look at that as far as balancing the two when you're creating builds. In POE 1, most of my builds I dual scale, and then I have probably only 10 to 20 nodes that are purely dedicated to offense. Okay. The other 100 or 110 are probably defense. But if you're dual scaling, you can get away with that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean by dual scaling? So if I'm playing Energy Blade, I'm going to just try to maximize like energy shield anywhere I can. So like if I get a cluster jewel or whatever, if I'm doing a split personality path, like all of that is giving me defense. So I like investing in it. But it's also giving me offense. There are still going to be points I take that are offense only, but it's hyper efficient. So maybe the best way to think about it isn't like think of it as like an arbitrary, this is what a defense point gives me, this is what an offense point gives me. The way it more usually works is if I had 123 points of defense and 0 of offense, the value of that first point of offense would be like 20% damage. And then the next point of offense would be like 15% damage. And it's like, the value is going to keep decreasing because you're going to take obviously the best one and the second best one. So it's not just like a static, okay, offense points 4% damage, defense points 2% EHP. It's more of like a spectrum of like, you want to take the high, obviously you're taking the highest value ones, but like some point in there will be like a cliff it falls off, and like that's where you want to stop. Okay. So it's kind of like a diminishing returns, diminishing returns kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So last question I asked you, we've been going for over an hour now, but last question I had for you was just, if you could, aside from Endgame, what would you be most excited for to see added into Path of Exile 2? I want Templar. I mean, I'm a long neck. I have to. We got a precursor to Templar, because we've got Templars like younger hippie cousin in the game now, so they had to redo that part of the tree. But we'll get him eventually. I think he's going to be last, which is good because like the way they've balanced so far is pretty much the new class has been like way better than. I'm guessing Warrior was the first class. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. So they kind of keep getting better with like power and smoothness. So hopefully that means the Templar's amazing. Right around launch time.
I'm hoping that I'm really excited to see the Shadow because I think that's when we're going to start getting like mines and traps. But I'm really, really nervous that they're going to make us spend something to throw out a mine or like throw out a trap.
So I'm curious, are we going to get, there isn't precedent for this yet, but so far every class that's in the game that has a POE 1 class has just gotten also the POE 1 Ascendancies, right? Because there's Ranger gets Deadeye and Pathfinder, right?
Right.
That's our only precedent we've had. Every other one's been the new version, but we know we are getting Marauder, right?
Right.
It's Warrior Marauder, but like, does that mean we're gonna get like Juggernaut Berserker Chieftain, or are we gonna get something completely new? I'm curious what they do on those.
I want to see what the third Ascendancy is going to be for the Ranger. I don't know. Have you heard? Because I know that's
the one that's got shuffled at least between Warden and Raider.
Right. That's what I was saying.
I'm guessing Warden because it's the newer design.
You think so? I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with something completely different. How I want to actually, I'll take this back. It's the second to last question. How do you feel about the Ascendancies in POE 2? Because for me personally, I just feel like they're so underwhelming. And I don't know if that's done as like on purpose, like as a design philosophy, how they want kind of the Ascendancy to not choose the skill. And they just want it to be more like broadly available for other skills. But how do you feel about that?
They're a little underpowered. I think mostly the problem is most Ascendancies only have 4 good points. Like, I was looking at making like a mana stacker, and I was looking at Ritualist. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. I get 3 rings, a 25% increased effect. This is amazing. And then I was looking at the other 4 points I'm spent. I'm like, can I have a Bloodline Ascendancy? Like, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. And like this feels like there's a lot of like Titan builds where I'd want to go hulking form to play like some like non-mace skill, and I look at the other 4 points and it's all just like heavy stun stuff. It's like, well, what if I want to do a crossbow or a caster? Like, so I think most Ascendancies have 4 okay points, and then the other 4 are just complete trash. And I think if they polish up what are like widely seen as like the trash ones. For most of them, they could be at about the right power level. Like, in general, the Passive Tree has lower power level in this game compared to Gear than PoE 2. I'm not, like, against that, but I at least want it to be interesting. So it's only about half interesting right now.
Right now, yeah, because it's weird how they did the... Because there's certain Ascendancies in PoE 1 that grant skills, right? Like, you have, like, Trigger Bots, or you have the Elemental, the big guy who's on fire. I can't remember what they call it. The Sentinel.
Sentinel.
Yeah. So it's like... It was strange to me how they switched where now most of the Ascendancies in the game grant you a type of skill, but there's nothing else that goes with the Ascendancy point. And a lot of those skills... Like, they don't feel good. Especially like if you look at something like the Tactician, how he has the supporting fire. Like, nobody uses that skill. Like, what's the point? Like,
I remember seeing Quinn on, was it point 2 or point 3, do the blacksmith where he was like hammering on the anvil while he's surrounded by monsters.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the system is better. The system is certainly better because what happens in PoE 1 is there's all these skills that get granted by items, but they're unlinkable and unmodifiable, so they're basically like 0 damage dead on arrival.
Right.
And they've kind of moved away from that a little bit. Well, okay, you could argue that with graphs being like somewhat modifiable and like factored in having higher damage because they can't be linked. But like, I do like the system better in this game, that you can support gem them, you can modify them, like it's way better. It's just the skills themselves are still underwhelming.
Right. I think that they could change it just to where if they added the like the corresponding node, right? If you added, just take the the supporting fire one, right? If you took that, but you added other modifiers on that Ascendancy point to where it supported that skill to make it like more powerful. I think that might help a lot. And I don't know. Maybe this is just like a bare bones, like beta kind of thing, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we'll see it come eventually. I know they changed a lot of like numerical values on the Ascendancies in this last patch. What did you feel about that? Did you was there anything that caught your eye as far as the Ascendancy changes?
It was fairly minor changes. I think the only one that people are like really clamoring about is Pathfinder. I think Pathfinder's okay. I think people are really overvaluing the starting from anywhere because the way they've even said this out loud, like the way the talent tree works is the points closer to the start are kind of worse, and the points along the outside are better, and that's where all the jewel sockets are too. It's like most builds, if you look at like most 95 plus builds on POE Ninja, their entire talent tree is just a loop around the outside. And then you look how far the outside is from the starting point, it's like 24 points. So I don't think starting from like a different starting point is actually that valuable at all when you ultimately just want to like branch out as fast as possible, then do a big loop.
All right.
As far as the others, I think the two new Druid ones are a little underwhelming. I think the Shaman and the Oracle, unless the Apocalypse skill is like the craziest thing ever, I think they're a little weak. Or unless that Path's Not Taken thing has some broken combos, or if there's some broken rune combos with the extra effect. I think most people who want to play Druid are going to have a better Druid on not a Druid. I think there's going to be some shape-shifting Titans and Deadeyes and Monks and stuff that are better, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how they do that, man. I don't know, but I was just looking at the heat map for 95 plus. You're 100% dead on. It's all along the outside of 95 plus characters. That's pretty funny. All right, man. Well, hey, will you let people know? First off, I thank you for taking the time out to do this. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Will you let people know where they can find you? What's the best way to support your content, your channel? When are you streaming? All that stuff.
Twitch.tv/OneManaLeft or ConnerConverse on YouTube. And I usually stream like, a little after lunch into the evening on North America hours. So Europe's usually up late if they're watching me, but I still get a lot of European viewers. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I can personally vouch. You got a banger of a channel, man. You come out with some pretty cool shit, so I appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching another episode. As always, please show some love to my guests. Make sure to subscribe to Connor's YouTube channel. His link is in the description. He does stream on Twitch as well, so make sure to give him a follow over there. His knowledge of build creation is almost unmatched by anybody else. So make sure to go and subscribe to his channel, subscribe to this channel for more podcasts, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.